You know, when you learn the secrets to hitting your irons flush, it becomes really easy. You look forward to hitting that mid-iron out of the fairway because you know you're going to hit a good one, and most of your playing partners are going to struggle hitting those shots. Now, I've put together 3 of my all-time best videos that are going to share with you some of those real secrets to hitting crisp irons. Let's go ahead and get started. What's the move that every single pro golfer makes? Well, they shallow out the club from the inside, tuck in that right elbow. Then from there, they open up their body with an iron, getting the shaft to lean in front and really just compress the heck out of it. Well, in this video, I'm gonna show you exactly how to do that. And once you get that move down, it's almost like the ball just has nowhere to go, but pretty straight with a nice little tight draw. Let's go ahead and give it a whirl here. There we go, hit that one fantastic. Again, nice straight shot, a little bit of draw from right to left. Not gonna do much better than that, 205 with a 6-iron. Well, there's a couple misconceptions that are causing players to, make this almost impossible. Let's talk about the right arm getting tucked in. Well, there's a couple things that are happening when the right arm doesn't get tucked. Number one, I could be standing up out of my posture, and when I stand up out of my posture, if I was to tuck that arm, there's no way for me to reach the golf ball. If I got this position here with the shaft leaning forward, this great pro impact position, if I stand up out of my posture, all of a sudden I'm a foot away from the golf ball. I would have to throw my right arm. There would be a gap between the side of my body and my right arm, release all that lag, get rid of the shaft lean to now being able to reach the ball. Well, there's one little trick you can do that helps with this. Think about your right shoulder. Look at the difference between when I stand up and throw my arms. My right shoulder is way back here and far away from the golf ball versus my right shoulder getting closer to the golf ball and in front of the golf ball. Now, I don't want this to be a slide in front. I want to keep my nose behind this golf ball, but I want to feel like my right shoulder goes down and through that, almost like if I had a split hand hockey grip and I was going to go ahead and set up this golf ball normal, grab a split hand grip and then come down there and make contact like this, put a little pressure into that golf shaft. You can see how much forward my right shoulder would be, how much closer to the ball it would be. Get that same feeling and then try to recreate that in a golf shot. You're going to find it's a lot easier to get that shaft lean. Let's go ahead and give it a whirl here. There you go, another one. Just hit that one fantastic. Nice little draw there again. And I just felt like I'm really getting on top of that golf ball. Now the second piece of that, I can't get on top of that golf ball if I don't shallow it out first. What I mean by that is if I'm coming down steep a little bit over the top here and I get this right shoulder driving down and through, that's going to be that over-the-top karate chop. Just bury that ball on the ground, chunks, thins, big slices, every bad shot that you can think of. So I need to do a little drill here to where I feel like I can get that club from the inside, get that elbow tucked, and then rotate on through. Here's the way that I like to feel that. Go ahead and just take the club with your right hand only. I find most players can swing easier just the right hand only. And take it to the top of the backswing. And if you're by a wall like this, think about tucking this elbow in and getting this club against the wall like that. So basically what I'm doing is I'm turning this arm out this way, and that's about the end of the range of motion. For me, that's as far that way as I can go. So simply going to the top of the swing, letting my arm tuck in, my elbow tuck in, that club get behind me, and then from there, I'm doing that rotating with the shoulder, getting this shoulder coming in front. That gets rid of that over-the-top steep action. I get very shallow, then I can rotate all that I want to. Let's go ahead and try another one there. Again, I would do about 5 reps with my right arm only. Then I would add my left arm in there, my normal grip, and I try to recreate the same feeling. Elbow tucked, club against the wall, then I just rotate on through. So let's give that one a whirl here. There we go, another nice shot. Just left center that time instead of right center. And really consistent ball flight, really consistent curvature to that, because when I get that elbow tucked and I get the club coming from the inside, all I have to do is rotate and the rest pretty much takes care of itself. Now the last piece of this is getting the bow of the left wrist. You see, the problem is when I get this club from the inside and I rotate, the face is wide open. I need to bow this left wrist to square it up. You see, the bowing of the left wrist not only opens and closes the club face, but it also adds and de-lofts the club face too. Here's what I mean by this. If I set this club shaft straight up and down, again, the pros are leaning the shaft forward. They're getting that compressing shot like we did with the hockey drill there. They're having the hands in front of the golf ball at contact. Well, if I leave this shaft straight up and down and I just bow my left wrist, that closes the club face. So that would be this motion here. I'm going to be bowing it, would be closing it. I'll do it this way so you can see it. I'm going to cup it, and that would open it. So you can see that face just twisting both ways when I do that motion. If I do that on the ground, here's the bow. And now you say, well, that's not going to work. The club face is pointing 30 degrees to the left. Well, watch what happens when I keep this same wrist angle and I lean the shaft forward. Now all of a sudden, the club face is square, the shaft is in front. I'll do the opposite. I'll cup my left wrist. Face is wide open. What do I have to do to square it up now? I have to have the hands behind the golf ball. So if you tend to stand up, throw the right arm, and have the shaft leaning back, there's no bow in that left wrist. So I want to practice here getting this good drill, and I'm going to have this wrist bow to square up that club face. That way I can get that draw. So again, same drill. Behind me, rotate on through, and now I'm just going to bow the wrist to square that face up and have it perfectly square. If anything, I want to go ahead and overdraw it as I'm doing that. So I'll get a little extra draw on this one maybe. There we go, start to the right, definitely slinging back. And if I do that motion, I get that wrist angle like that, I'm guaranteeing that you can see these black lines, these tracers on there. I'm getting each one of those to turn over from right to left. I can really depend on that kind of a shot.
Forward shaft lean is a must-have if we're going to want to play consistent, powerful golf. So if we're going to want to clear the hips, compress the ball, and release it out in front like all the touring pros do, we have to have that base mechanic of clearing the hips. So when you're working on this at the range and you start firing your hips and they stop and then the club passes and flips and you think you're clearing your hips and you're doing it as hard as you can, or you even try to do it slow and it stops and it flips, you might even stand up out of posture. All these things can kind of happen and we're kind of wondering what's going on. Well, I have a really great drill for you that's not only going to show you the exact mechanics of how we swing with the hips in sync with the club, it's also going to be a great feel drill that you can use on the golf course that's going to help you sync up the club through impact so that you can compress it and release it out in front. So how this drill works is we're going to imagine that, well, you're going to use your belt line. So you're going to imagine a belt around you. So even if you're not wearing one, imagine a belt around your waist. And what we're going to do is, in our mind, we're going to turn this belt into a steering wheel. So if the belt is a steering wheel and I'm just standing straight up and down, that would me be driving straight. If I take my steering wheel, just like I'm driving a car, and turn it to the right, or I turn it to the left, that's how I open and close my hips. So we know in the backswing, we're going to turn the steering wheel to the right, and then on the downswing, we're going to turn our steering wheel to the left. So that's the move you're already really good at. You know to turn your hips and fire the hips, but what's the missing piece? The missing piece is what are we doing with the club in relationship to the hips? When you're working on this and you come up and you fire the hips and you have no idea where the club is, that's the number one thing that's going to cause you to stop, flip, and even stand up out of posture when you're going into impact. So what you're going to do is imagine that steering wheel, and we're going to work on how the club attaches to that steering wheel. So what I'm going to have you do is go up to the top of your swing, and when you come down, I want you to pause when you're about parallel to the ground. And from here, I'm going to have you take a steel rod from the butt end of the club, and I want you to attach it to your steering wheel. So in your mind, there's a steel rod, and this is welded on. It cannot move unless the steering wheel moves. So in order to move this club head to the ball, we have to turn our steering wheel to the left, or opening up to get this club head to go to the ball. Where you're making the mistake is you're ripping the steering wheel off of the club, and now the club can't move. Now you're going to have to use your hands to try to play catch up. So if we have this steel rod attached to our steering wheel, for every inch we open up the steering wheel, that's going to move the club head into the ball. That's our visual. That's how the mechanics work of how we get forward shaft lean and then release it out in front. So how this works, as in slow speed, we can keep this attached to the steering wheel, but when we add speed to the hips and we're turning this through, the club head in actuality is going to release out in front. But in our mind, it's going to be attached to that steering wheel the entire time. So how we start applying this is, first I want you to take some dry swings where you go up to the top of your swing, just like we did right here, attach that butt end of the club to your steering wheel, and start getting a sensation for when you're turning that steering wheel to the left, that's what's moving the club back and forth. Go ahead and brush the turf, turn it back and forth, and that's what's moving the club. If I'm doing this incorrectly, we're going to notice the club head past the hands. So here, I should be in the same position. Let me show you from this way. I should be in the same position here as I was when the club head's parallel to the ground. It's not going to move because it's a steel rod attached to there. And that's the feel we're going to use when we start hitting some shots. So we know that the steering wheel is going to move the club head to the ball. So when I want you to start off with some easy shots where you take the club just about halfway back, move the steering wheel through, and just hit some little chips just like that, where you're actually utilizing this visual to move the club head into the ball. Once you get a good feel for that, you'll probably start hitting some really sharp shots because this is what allows us to get that compression on the ball. When we are moving with the club, we can keep the hands out in front, which allows us to get the forward shaft lean or stability of the face through impact. And again, when we start adding speed, it'll automatically release out in front beautifully. So once you get really comfortable with that, what I want you to do is start taking some bigger swings, just gradually bigger, but as you get to the top of your swing, when the hands get about over parallel, then you're going to allow them to get parallel. So when you get to the club parallel position, I want you to almost feel like you're driving straight in front of you. So if you have the camera set in front of you, if you're driving straight, your steering wheel's pointing straight. And then from here, that's when you're gonna turn it through. So you're gonna almost time it to where the club's parallel to the ground, then we've got we're kind of attaching the rod to the belt and turning through. So now with that visual, I am imagining that once that club gets about parallel to the ground, it's attached, and now these hips are gonna fire open, it's gonna clear, and everything, because I'm moving the club head into the ball with my hips, and now we have a very easy visual to see how that works, now we can get that compression and release it out in front. So once we get a pretty good feel for like an easy full swing, then you can start taking some rips at it and start bombing it, because now you can clear the hips in sync with the full swing. Now there we go. So again, my feel on that full swing was this was attached like that steel rod, and I was turning that steering wheel through. But because of the speed, that club head's going to automatically release out in front.
Now there is one single mistake that gives all recreational golfers I see extreme inconsistency, chunks and thin shots. I have a little station set up here, and if I do this mistake, I'm going to end up hitting this towel and getting a lot of chunks and thins. There we go. So we can see that would have been a big time chunk. The ball just kind of dribbles out there. It makes you want to take your club and just snap it into 1,000 little pieces. It's so frustrating chunking one. And then once you hit a couple of those chunks, we do the same motion with a little bit of adjustment. We start to stand up out of our posture slightly so we don't hit as much ground, and then we thin one, and it's even worse, right? So let's talk about how we set this up and how this one drill can give you a ton of consistency. What I've done here is I've rolled a towel in half. I'll just set this on the ground like that. I don't want it to be too high there, so just rolling a thin towel like this. This is kind of the kind of towel they usually put in the back of your golf or in your golf cart when you play around. So this is nice because you can use it the same drill the way I have it set up here at most golf courses. Now I'm going to put this golf ball about 5 to 6 inches in front of that towel. You see, pros are having their club come down. It would miss this towel. My weight is getting to my left. I'm driving some pressure into my left foot and my left knee, and I'm hitting down on this golf ball slightly. So I'd be missing this towel, hitting the ground on the golf ball roughly at the same time, and then the bottom of my divot would be about 4 inches in front of the golf ball. So I kind of mark that with this T. If you're doing this on turf, I should see that exact same thing. I should see missing the towel, hitting the golf ball, a divot from the front of the golf ball all the way up through here, and that would be what the pros are doing. So let's go ahead and take a look at the wrong way to doing this, what I just showed. Most players, what ends up happening is we throw the club to release the club with our arms. This means that the club shaft will be straight up and down at impact, and my arms will be releasing at my body. Now you can tell you're doing this if you tend to stand up out of your posture. So if in the downswing, your hips move toward the golf ball, and your upper body goes back away from the golf ball, you're doing this move that I'm talking about. Now the problem with that is that puts your low point slightly behind the golf ball because I'm throwing at the golf ball, my club gets straight up and down just behind the golf ball. So if I imagine this is a hula hoop, this is the arc of my swing. So my club comes down and then goes back up. The low point would be just behind the golf ball like that. Now that low point would be the bottom of your divot. Remember I said pros have the bottom of their divot at this tee up here, 4 inches in front. We're having our divot back here slightly behind the golf ball. So that means that if I hit down and take a divot, this would be the bottom of my divot and it would be a massive chunk like we saw in the last one. I would be hitting this towel when that's happening. Now you say, okay, I don't like chunking it. That's a pain in the butt. I don't want to do that again. So now we start to raise up out of that shot slightly, and all we're doing is pulling our hula hoop higher. So the bottom of the divot is still behind it, but now we're missing the ground and we're going to thin the ball most times. Now if I have the ball setting up in a little bit of grass, I can go ahead and make that higher like that. I can hit some grass behind the golf ball and still hit it fairly clean, but the problem is the lie has to be perfect. Anytime we're not on a perfect lie, it's a disaster. So all of these inconsistencies are coming from having that low point behind, and then we adjust it up, we thin it. We adjust it down, we chunk it. Up, down, very inconsistent. I have to get the low point of my swing up here like the pros have it, 4 inches in front of that golf ball. That has to be the low point of my swing. That's exactly what we're gonna do in this drill. So step one, towel rolled over once. It's a thin towel. If you have a thicker towel, just put it in there once or don't even roll it over. 4 to 6 inches or 5 to 6 inches behind the golf ball. The width of a club head is about 4 inches, most club heads. Now the first move we're going to do here is I'm going to start to shift my weight to the left as I'm still making a backswing. So we're going to do a little practice swing like this. Go to here, and then I want you to feel like you get your weight to the left and then swing down. That looks like this. As I make my backswing, I'm going to go to about right here. I'm going to let my left knee kick out like that. So if I have an arrow shooting out of my knee, it's starting to get some pressure in my left knee, and my left knee is turned out. It doesn't look like this. On my downswing, if my knee's like that, I'm not going to be able to get my weight on the left. I want to kick that leg out to start my downswing, put pressure in the left leg, and then I swing through. So we're going to make a few small swings doing that, and then we're going to build from there. So this is a little half swing, probably only going to hit it barely over 100 yards. Yeah, just a little small swing. It's showing it fast on the screen today. I have no idea why that's happening. I actually had pretty good club head speed there, even though I don't feel like I was swinging very hard. And with the 6-iron, that still went 188 yards. So to me, that felt like I was barely swinging, but because my technique was good, I had a lot of speed, and I was able to contact that ball fairly solidly. That's piece number one. Get the knee out, weight left, then you swing down. I don't want to throw my weight back as I'm swinging down. Weight goes left first, that's the first move. Weight's left, then I make my downswing. Now, piece number two, I'm going to go ahead and let my right leg kick forward. So here's how we're going to do this. I'm going to let my kneecap come toward, imagine there was a ball about a foot in front of the golf ball that I'm hitting. My kneecap goes toward that golf ball. So here's how we're going to do this. Little backswing, shift left. As I swing down, that kneecap goes toward that golf ball, and then I hit the golf ball here. So we're going to practice it like this. Make a little backswing. Get your weight left as your left arm's about parallel with the ground. Pause there. Go to impact and let this knee kick forward like that. Your heel should be coming up off the ground, and that's going to get it to where you can hit down and through this golf ball. Now, if you want to go a little fancier than that, we can get rid of the towel, and we can put down what's called the speed trap by Eyeline Golf. I do get a little commission if you buy, somewhere on this page you'll see a link to this. If you don't have to buy this, just use the towel if you want to. But if you want to get nicer than that, use this speed trap. On here, there's 3 marks, a chipping, a pitching, and a full swing. I actually have found the pros are more along the lines of this red chipping one. So put the golf ball where that red line is there. And now that's that 4 to 6 inches, or 5 to 6 inches behind it is where this plexiglass stands there. So I'm going to go ahead and get my weight left. My knee kicks forward. I'm doing these practice reps to feel where that is, and then I'm letting my arms go long through the shot. So let me go ahead and try to make a little half swing again, doing that drill. There we go, hit that one fantastic. 200 yards total distance. Again, that's after roll, but man, that felt really solid, and I missed this board. If I start to do this stand up and fall back, you can hear it hit this board. Right, I hit a big thud on there. I actually can see a little bit of area here where it's scuffed up right there just behind the golf ball, and I know my low point is way too far back. Now finally, there's one drill that really brings this home, and I found a lot of people have a tough time getting off that right foot. If you're having your divot too far back, you're oftentimes falling on that right foot and all the pressure's on the right foot in the downswing. What we're gonna do for that is go ahead and bring this towel out again. Again, you can do all this with the towel. You don't even have to have this speed trap here, but it makes it a little bit easier to not have to move the towel around every time. But I'm gonna roll this towel up a few times, get it nice and thick like this, and I'm gonna put it under the outside of my right toe. So what I'm trying to do here is on my backswing, I'm gonna load into that, and then I'm gonna push off of that in my downswing. Get my weight going to the left. What I don't wanna have happen is if you're looking at my right foot, I don't wanna sway to the outside of that, get this reverse pivot, and then I stand up and throw it rather than getting to the left. If I do this motion, it's almost impossible to get back to the left and hit down and through. So this towel under my right foot like that is gonna help me to push off of it, and I never roll to the outside of my foot. When I'm setting up like this with this towel, it feels like it's almost impossible that I could hit this plexiglass back there. It feels like I'm gonna have to get that divot down and through the golf ball. There we go, and hit that one great. Right down the middle, 210. Now, there is one main problem here. What I mentioned there is releasing the club at the golf ball. And that's the big issue. If we don't fix that, none of these drills are gonna work. Everything stemmed from that one problem. So one thing that people do, and why we do this, is we try to square up the face that way. So in my downswing, this face is open to the target. It would be kind of facing out to the camera towards you. And to square that up, what's most common is people will throw their arms and square up the face like this. So now the face is square, but I'm clipping that plastic behind this golf ball. That's one way of squaring up the face. That's what I call the roll method. And if you do it that way, it's gonna be pretty daggone tough to get the divot in front. Well, I have a video for you called the anti-roll method. I'm gonna tell you how to square it up just like the pros are doing. So instead of throwing my arms to square it up and getting that divot back here, I'm now gonna use my wrist and hands in a very specific way to get my club face to square up. Now the leading edge is square with contact, but the shaft is leaning in forward, my weight is on my left side, my right heel is coming off the ground. That's a totally different way to square up the club face. I'm gonna play a preview of a video here in just 1 second that's gonna walk you through the anti-roll method and the right way to square it up, just like every tour pro you see, and I can't wait to share it with you. Just go ahead and click the card that pops up on the screen somewhere. If you don't see one of those cards, don't worry. Go ahead and click the link down below in the description. You'll get instant access to that video. I can't wait to share with you the anti-roll method. Let's get started right now. So here's the bottom line. If you've been taught to roll the club in the early downswing, that causes the shaft to get steep. And that steep club causes all your problems. It causes you to hit it way behind the big hitters and way inconsistent with your quality of strikes. So you're in the tall grass and the trees and the hazards all day long. Now the great news is this. There's really only 2 pieces that you need to know to fix all these problems. The first one is we need to learn the proper way to square up the club face. Instead of rolling the forearms and getting steep, there's another way that the pros do this. Once you learn this right way to square up the club face, then you can shallow out from the inside and everything starts to fit together. Now I'm going to teach you this right now in what I call the anti-roll method. You may also hear this called the motorcycle move or the tour twist, but let's walk through exactly how to do that. Now what I want you to do is go ahead and go kind of in the last parallel in the downswing. So here, I want my hips to go ahead and be opening up. I want my club to be parallel with the ground, and I want my hands to be in front of my right thigh. Now, when I take my grip, you're going to notice that when I do this, the club face is basically straight up and down. So if I'm looking at it from this angle, you'll see the face is straight up and down, and my logo of my glove is pointed out in front of me. Now from there,